Okay, good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the Senior Enlisted Leader Panel, part of this afternoon's event. That's going to keep tipping down.
It's not flat.
No, it's not flat. So my name is Kevin Goodrich, and I'm the Force Master Chief at Navy Surface Force Atlantic. We work out of Norfolk. Admiral Wilson is my boss. He's sitting right here with us. And today we are joined with 3 enlisted leaders that represent nearly 500,000 enlisted men and women on active duty today. And I'm going to kick it over to them for some brief introductions before we get started with the questions. So, Mick.
Good afternoon. I'm Master Chief Russel Smith, and I have been in the position of the Master Chief Petty of the Navy since August of last year. I work for Admiral Richardson, as you all know, as the 31st Chief of Naval Operations, and before that, I was the Fleet Master Chief for N1, working for Vice Admiral Burke. And I've been in the Navy for over 30 years, and this tour will take me out to 34. So most notable tours: Naval Academy Command Master Chief before the N1. Last afloat tour was the Mobson as the Command Master Chief, and 2 tours on the mighty Abraham Lincoln, which is out getting business done on deployment. So hoo-yah, Lincoln.
All right. Good afternoon. I'm Sergeant Major Robin Fortner, and I'm actually representing our 18th Sergeant Major of the Marine Corps, Sergeant Major Ronald Green. I currently work at Marine Corps Systems Command on Quantico, Virginia, underneath Brigadier General Pasajian. I've been in the Marine Corps for 29 years now, and I've worked in every part of the MAGTAF, from the division to the wing to the logistics side as well, to include the support side. Before this tour, I worked down as the Director of the Staff NCO Academy, which is our premier PME for our enlisted Marines. So glad to be here, looking forward to the discussion.
Thank you for having me. Master Chief Jason Vanderhaden, Master Chief Petty of the Coast Guard. I'm the 13th Master Chief Petty of the Coast Guard. Just about to hit 31 years, and been in the job almost a year. I represent the not quite 500,000. I'm in the smaller end of this 500,000 group, but we have a great group of Coast Guard men and women who get 11 statutory missions done every day, and we're spread out around the world, and proud to represent them and answer any questions that we have today.
Awesome. So, ladies and gentlemen, our panel today is scheduled for about an hour and a half. I've got a few questions up front, probably take us about halfway through, and then my intention is to open up to you so that you may ask some really interesting questions other than the ones I'm going to ask to our panel members. So, ready to get started? Okay, our first question for today. I'd like each of you to talk a little bit about the state of the enlisted force in each of your services, specifically the size and composition of that force. Also, where you stand with recruiting and retention efforts and any challenges you may be facing along that arena.
Thanks. So we're currently sitting at about 324,000 sailors. We're on track to grow significantly to meet the manning requirements of the 355-ship Navy mandate. We are doing really well with recruiting. We haven't missed a goal in over 11 years. That has not always been easy, and we've had some fraying at the edges as we have had some challenges, but we've made some adjustments. Many of you familiar with our recruiting efforts may know that we've transitioned from the Naval Recruiting District model to what we call the NTAG, or Navy Tactical Acquisition Group, and it's more of an assembly line process by taking the utilizing the strengths of the people on your team and using them as a whole team and goaling as a team, rather than having each of the recruiters working against each other. So if I have one real extrovert who's incredibly talented at going into a school and closing a deal with a student, and I have somebody else who's really incredibly efficient at the processing piece and getting them through the system, I have one who does one, I have one who does the other, and manages a handoff, and as a team, as they work together, when they make goal, if they make goal consistently, they can qualify for the very little used SDAP level 7, and it's a really good incentive, and it's working out really well. As a result, we haven't had a recruiting mission of 40,000 since 2008, and we are on track to meet it. And in 2008, we had about 1,500 more recruiters and twice the budget. So despite these challenges and going nationally by district and by using the team concept within each of the districts instead of competing against each other, recruiters working against each other, we're still managing to make goal. When it comes to retention, we haven't seen retention this high since, not even after 9/11 have we seen retention this high, up around 78, 79%. So my information's time late as of about a month and a half. But as of the last time I checked, it was around 78, 79%, which is as high as it's ever been. Not really sure why that is, not looking a gift horse in the mouth. We've had to scale back. Our original recruiting goal was actually 44,000, but as we have retained so many, we have scaled back to make sure that we grow on a glide slope and don't grow too quickly so that we have problems then with things like advancement and other things, because as you all know, we are in a vacancy-driven advancement system and you don't want to clog the pipe too fast, too much. Growing also requires that you grow at all levels, and you can't just recruit and bring in people through boot camp. You have to do things like pull on the higher tenure levers, which we did for E4, E5, and E6, and then we subsequently did for chief, senior chief, and master chief going to C, and I anticipate that at some point we may do so for chiefs and senior chiefs, regardless of sea or shore, because again, you have to grow at all levels. We also brought over 1,162 reserves back onto active duty, as we increase that AC, RC permeability and that whole team concept between the reserves and active duty, that's going to be critical to our nation and our Navy going forward.
Thank you, MacPon.
Okay.
Sergeant Major.
Okay, so for the Marine Corps, definitely not as robust as far as the numbers are concerned. We sit at 186.1 right now. We're only looking to slightly grow to 186.4. Out of that, as you said, about 164,000 enlisted personnel of that group. So that's where we stand as the enlisted force. As far as the recruitment is concerned, we don't have the numbers to have a team, so I appreciate that concept. I'm actually going to take that back. So most of our recruiters out there is lone warriors, if you will, and some of the challenges that they face, you know, as far as the strong economic stature of our nation, and as well as the fact that employment has grown as well in the last 40 years or so. So our recruiters face a struggle as far as just ensuring that they have the best qualified Marines that meet those standards set by the DoD. One thing that we did try to do is make things easier on them. So we tried to make sure that the system and the resource that we give them is up to par. So with technology growing as far as what the younger people are used to doing, we wanted to make sure that we enabled our recruiters to meet that goal and to speak that language. You know, there's a lot of intangible things that we gravitate towards just because budget constraints. We don't have as many incentives financially, but we do have those intangible skill sets that many of them strive for. Another thing that we're starting to do is just make ourselves a lot more visible in the communities, looking at different types of diverse type of avenues to make sure that we get out there what the Marine Corps has to offer and what they can also bring to the table. With that effort, I know for one specific instance, we've grown already. I've been in the Marine Corps for 29 years, and we finally actually almost at 9% females in the Marine Corps. So that's just an example of diversifying the effort out there to make sure that we get the best qualified Marine, but we're not just streamlining traditional paths. We're also trying to broaden that prospect as well. Retention. When I think about retention, you know, we don't have a problem. We're meeting the recruiting goal. We're meeting the retention goal. I go back again to making sure I got the right person in the right seat on the right bus. So it's not about just quantitatively keeping the Marines, but making sure that the skill set is there and making sure that we got the right people to stay. Some of the things that kind of attrit out, we already know in the first 4 years, we're going to lose a lot of that attrition, but some of the skill set is what we're looking at, some of the technical fields, making sure that we have the right incentives for them to stay and stick around. Some things as far as when we look at the levels as the senior members, life and career, the balance of that, we're losing a lot of our female Marines when it comes to retention in that aspect. So with that being said, a lot of things are looked at as far as making sure we bridge that gap between the quality of life to make sure that we give them something, the same realistic training and the same goals that they can attain outside in the civilian world.
Thanks. We're sitting at about 42,000 active duty and about 6,200-ish reservists. Our workforce is a little bit different. Our active duty and reserve component are integrated. We don't have many reserve commands. We have a few reserve commands, but by and large, our reservists serve at active duty units, so we count them in. We are doing well. We're meeting mission and recruiting. We're really striving to get a diverse workforce, and we have set goals for our recruiters, and we're meeting those goals. We're doing a good job with that. So then we're trying to build an inclusive feeling workforce where everybody feels included and they feel like they have a pathway to success, and then so hopefully we can hold on to those numbers that we're recruiting. We enjoy 91.4% overall retention in the Coast Guard, and that's we need that. We don't like to have to retrain people to do the same job. So what we try to do is we build an apprentice, journeyman, and master level of performance, and our junior folks can see they have an opportunity to move up quickly if they study hard and try to get the qualifications that they need. I'm working right now. We test for every advancement all the way through E9, and I'm looking at a panel process right now, and we're gonna do this. A lot of the other branches of the service are updating their advancement process, and we're doing the same thing. But life is good in the Coast Guard. We're doing well. We have good missions. We're enjoying good support on Capitol Hill in terms of recapitalizing our aging assets, and that's improving quality of life. And we have to use the same thing. Our high year tenure looks just like the Navy does theirs. Well, I say just like it. We don't separate our underway or afloat and ashore community. Everybody gets looked at the same. But by and large, everything is, it's a good place. It's a good time to be in the Coast Guard, and we're fortunate.
One point I wanted to lead off with, and I forgot to mention, 27% of the nation meets the minimum eligibility requirements to serve in the military, and that's an important thing to remember. So the pool of people out there that can even come to us that we're challenged to get is small. When you think about the fact that unemployment is at a 50-year low in that target demographic, it gets even harder to go get those folks. And when you think about 1% of that group, of that 27% is even propense to serve, and by the way, the rest of the nation is after those same people, the challenge for recruiting and finding those folks that want to come to us is really, really hard. So, thank you.
Awesome, yeah. Okay, so next question. What do you see as the biggest challenges facing Marines, Coast Guardsmen, and sailors today? And I'd like to start at the other side of the table with Master Chief of the Coast Guard this time.
Okay, thanks, Kev. So the biggest challenges is being able to specialize and be really good as technology improves, and as we get more technology and better tools in the hands of our Coast Guardsmen. We need to be able to make sure that they can grow from that apprentice, journeyman, and master in that specialty, but at the same time, we require a lot of additional duties on top of that. So when I try to advance the best folks, I need to be able to allow them to specialize. Everybody, I got some young coasties sitting there right in the middle of the room, and they want to get really good at their job. And I need them to be really good at that job, but I also need them to be good at a lot of other different things in the Coast Guard. So these guys, they may do whatever their primary rating is. They might also do law enforcement on top of that, or they might also do helicopter landing on top of that, or the damage control. And I need them to be good at everything, but also to be really, really good at one thing. And so trying to manage that and grow them and get them that's going to be the biggest challenge, is being able to get all the missions done with the few number of people that we have and still get really good at something. That's going to be tricky going forward. I don't see us growing a whole lot. We'll grow as our platforms grow, as we get new ships and new aircraft. But I don't see the size of the workforce like growing exponentially. But yet, they're going to have, their skill sets are going to have to grow exponentially.
Sergeant Major?
All right, I'm going to take it in a little bit different direction because I think we can speak on the proficiency of the technical side, but I'm going to take it to the people side. So when I think about some of the challenges facing Marines, people is our biggest asset. We all know that. So there's been a lot of focus on investing in the foundational piece of the Marine. And I'm going to talk for 18th Sergeant Major of the Marine Corps, Ron Green. You know, he started this initiative and he's calling it Own It. And basically saying, let's take accountability, if you will, for our actions, but also the Marine to our left and our right. You know, it's things that we already know is out there. And it's not about teaching, it's about reminding and making sure that the Marine is ready to fight tonight. You know, that's kind of our mission. Our mission, we just don't have enough to go around. We don't even have enough to cross-train on that level. That's awesome, right? So not only do I need you to be proficient, but I need you to be in the fight. So I need everybody on the team in the fight. And what happens when our readiness goes down when that's not the case? So I think this Own It campaign, for us, we deal a lot in our cultural mindset. And it's just another tool to put in our toolkit to say, own it. Be part of the solution, not part of the problem. I need you in the game. There's so many different demands out there from what it takes to be in the military service periods, whether it's deployment, your family, being away from your family, those kind of things, along with a lot of the societal ills that's plaguing our services. Well, you know, we can go into them all day long, but at the end of the day, how do I build up that resilient Marine to maintain that resilient Marine and keep him or her in the fight? Another campaign we have is called Protect What You Own. So Own It kind of comes in right behind that Protect What You Earned. So if I got to this level, you know, and y'all are reading the news. I'm not going to go into specifics unless you ask me in the end. But reading the news and things like that, I got to this level. Help me maintain it for the good of the institution. But a lot of times we don't tell them how to maintain it. And I'm not talking necessarily about the senior people. You remember what I said is 164,000 out of the 186 are young Marines, 25 and below. And I got kids, my youngest is 21, and I'm still teaching her at the same time. So we can't lose sight that there's still a lot of education to be put into the person themselves. So I think for us, at this point, one of the challenges, and I'm using that word a little bit loosely because I think it's ongoing. I think we just can't take our pulse off the fact that we got to invest into the person themselves as well.
So there's a couple different ways, anticipating this might be a question, that you could look at this. You know, the challenge facing sailors today, from my perspective as a Chief Petty Officer, I think the challenge is getting our sailors ready for the blue water fight, which we think in the near peer competitor space that we're in right now, the war of the future is not going to look like what we've fought for the last 17 years, and we know that, and some of our skills and things we've done have atrophied. And we're not where we were 30 years ago when it comes to damage control readiness and firefighting readiness, and so we're making the adjustments we need to. But if I think about it from the perspective of a sailor standing in front of me, what is the biggest challenge? Choices and options. Too many choices and options in time management, and how do I figure out how to deal with all of that? I come on board a ship and I have a skill set to learn, but I have this really neat thing called TA and college courses and the option to take those in front of me. But I really need to know my job. And so part of it is getting the Chief Petty Officers and the leadership, the LPO, to help that sailor balance and manage those options and say, know your job, know your skill set, know what it is that you're going to be expected to do, so that under high stress in the middle of the night with things exploding around you or your ship sinking around you, that you can still do those things to save whoever is still left alive on your ship and keep that thing seaworthy so that you can continue the fight or save whoever's left. Those are the kind of things that we need to help sailors with and prioritize, because there are so many choices out there and there are so many options for sailors to focus on. Education for sea power, in my opinion, could not have come along at a better time, because it takes some of those things that sailors have tended to focus on away from those jobs and skill sets that we talked about, and says, hey, if you stay with us, we will help get you there. We will quantify what it is you do in a meaningful way so that we can get you to an associate's degree and later on a baccalaureate degree. But focus on your job, focus on your skills, focus on the things that we need you to, the basic sailor skills and your technical in-rate skills, so that this nation, this Navy, this ship, this unit, whatever you are a part of, is ready to fight. And that, to me, is the biggest challenge, and again, making sure that sailors truly understand what's coming, not in stories, not in sea stories or what they see in the news, but making it real for them, taking those stories that some of us older folks have with our experiences and really painting it in a realistic fashion for sailors to understand that there is something coming that they need to get ready for, that war will come most likely in their generation, and that they need to be prepared to fight.
Awesome. What a great segue to my next question, Master Chief. Thank you. So I'd like to ask the panel, much is often made of generational differences. I know that inside the Navy, we study the new generations coming through the door and how best we can adjust our strategies and leadership to meet them. I'm sure you have the same type of training programs in the Marine Corps and in the Coast Guard. So I'll ask you, do you see a need for institutional change when you balance the need for military structure with the flexibility required to get the most out of and properly lead the new generations, millennials and centennials? Start with you.
Okay, so just to give you an idea of that argument that sometimes we often hear this generation isn't prepared, this generation's softer, they're not as capable. I don't believe that. I've spent far too much time at boot camp. I've spent far too much time managing, visiting, being a part of that accession pipeline to believe that the sailors that are coming to us today are any less capable than the sailors of my generation or any generation we've ever had. By any measure, and if you've ever heard the CNO talk on this, by any measure that we have more capable sailors today than we've ever had in our nation's history. From an academic perspective, from a physical standpoint, we have the raw material that we need. They are different than I was when I came in 30 years ago, and certainly those who are older, that means we probably need to retool the factory to make sure that we are taking the raw materials that we are handed today to still turn out the product that we will find useful tomorrow. So we had a lot of complaints with not just from those in the fleet, but from sailors themselves as to what we were doing at boot camp. And so after enough, we went back to boot camp and took a look around. And we sent Admiral Bernacchi up there with a team of folks, and they did a really deep dive into what we're doing, and we realized that our basic military training core competencies, the things we expect a sailor to know when they come out, were horribly misaligned with the curriculum that we had, because over time, things had just, congressional inquiry here, a complaint there, things had slowly drifted away, almost like watching a child grow. You don't notice it, but slowly things get away from where you intended them to go. Every sailor needs to know this training. Let's put it at boot camp. And it displaces something because you still have that finite amount of time. When you put something in, it pushes something out. And when we put something in, it displaced something that we desperately needed. And we realized that there were too many things that were off of where we needed them to be, so we went back and we re-engineered boot camp. We also instituted a physical standard to start boot camp. We raised the standard to graduate from boot camp. And to some, not to us, but to some, inexplicably, attrition dropped. It goes up at the beginning, but overall attrition dropped, which told us that we had been, through all good intention, but not wisely, had not been challenging. We'd been coddling the recruits that we'd been getting, and as a result, we had not been getting what we wanted. And as soon as we began to challenge recruits, they rose to the occasion, and more were passing, more and more were doing even better than they had before. So higher standards, more people were passing, a more deliberate approach to firefighting, damage control, line handling, medical drills, all the things that you expect recruits and then sailors to participate in as soon as they get to the fleet in some basic form or fashion, they're now being exposed to consistently, and they are graded on both individually and as teams. When they get to the Battle Stations 21 final exercise, they're graded individually and as a team, and if they fail, If they have family on the plane, they're going to be set back and they won't graduate because we are not going to relax the standard. We are going to send the fleet a quality product so that they can use that quality product to turn them into the sailors that they need to become. We don't make sailors in 8 weeks. We don't make sailors in 6 months in the accession pipeline. That process grows at the deck plates when we send them out to their ship squadrons and operational units. But we owed the fleet a better raw product than we were giving them, and we're doing that now. And I think you're going to start to see that tangible difference in what we do and what we've been doing in the fleet, in the sailor that you get.
Okay, on this question, when I think about the structure of the military and the flexibility of how to lead millennials, there's lots of different courses, as you mentioned, of trying to close that generational gap. And, I think that's where the focus is and the focus needs to be. I stop and think there's about 90 generals in the Marine Corps and there's 1,500 E9s. So when you talk about policy writing, policy enforcement, things like that, there's a lot of older people making policy and enforcing policy, and that's not always the way to lead the millennials in a more technological field or the way the mindset is. So I'm going towards the thought process of our mindset. I have a term sometimes I'll say when I walk out there, I don't speak Lance Corporal, so translate. Because sometimes the terms they use is not necessarily the term I use. I don't know about you, but I didn't tweet or Twitter back in my days, right? My idea of a text is I would fold up a piece of paper and send it across the classroom. It might say, will you go out with me? Yes, no, or maybe. I know what I'm talking about, right? My point is, we just didn't speak their language, and there's a lot of times as I go out, we still don't always speak the language. So we're listening at the same time, letting them understand where we need to go, again, for the more national, broad policies. They don't need to know the intricacies of it, but they need to understand we're going to get there. And at the end of the day, we are retired, and they're going to carry on that torch. So looking at different ways to communicate has been a stomp for the Marine Corps of just trying to make sure that we educate on the different levels, not just what we need from the institution-wise, but also being able to communicate up and down from that level. Our focus was not the boot camp way, as was previously stated, but we do a lot more in our enlisted PME. So unlike the other services, we've been behind in our enlisted PME. Not as many resources has been pumped in, if you will, to where it is that our Marines are from an academia point of view. So in other words, we're still looking at ways to help them get to that associate. We just don't have the resources, we just don't have the money. So our military PME, we started to put a lot more investment into that. When you talk about the millennials now, 7 seconds, if I don't catch them in the first 7 seconds, I'm almost losing them, right? So I got to be able to get them there and let them help take me to the next level. Letting them know how to critically think. That's our bread and butter. We were talking about that earlier. Our strategic corporal. That's our bread and butter to fight. We make sure we delegate all the way down. So not only is the equipment starting to make sure that they have the resources to think on the ground, to take that patrol out, and I don't care where you are, you could be in the vehicle, you could be on the ground, you could be in the air, you could be on a ship. But I want to be able to make sure that we delegate that critical thinking thought process that long time ago, higher levels was the one doing that sort of thinking. Absolutely be surprised that the more we delegate, how ingenious they are and to coming up with the problem solving. And we got to be able to trust them to do that. Give them the commander's intent, helping them to understand from even the Lance Corporal level. We started PME down at the E3 level. For us, that was a new concept a couple of years ago. Making sure they understand what is a commander's intent. How do I operate around that commander's intent and make sure in my wheelhouse I know what to do to make sure that it's not just about my personal intuition, but also making sure it's for or going in the direction that the commander wants to go. So when we talk about millennials, I think there's still so much to learn, but we're definitely going in that direction, that keep them to be part of the solution, delegating that down all the way down and helping us understand, how do I speak Lance Corporal?
So I think the blended retirement system is going to be a game changer in terms of our retention model. We're giving our young folks options and opportunities to leave the service as we didn't have before. So and also while we're giving them options to leave the service, we're at a generation that they like to try different things. They like to try new jobs. And so we may have to, and I'm not sure if we need an institutional change, but we may need to look at our human resource management processes, the way we keep people in, the way we allow people to come and go within the service. And you know, the Navy has, I believe, the career intermission program, and we have a temporary separation program, and we may need to offer people opportunities to go work outside the service and then come back. Just because I think this particular generation enjoys trying new things and getting really good at different things. So we may have to look at that and how we bring people in. The 2019 NDAA no longer requires somebody to be able to do 20 years before they hit 62. So we could start recruiting at different age groups with different skill sets and bring people in. So that we're going to have to get creative on that. I think I will say that this age group, in my opinion, they're less concerned about money. They like to enjoy going to work. So my mission is, and at least in the time that I have left, is that I want to make people feel connected to the mission. In every job, no matter what they do, they need to feel connected to the mission. They need to understand their role and their importance in getting the overall mission done. And if they do that, and if they feel buy-in, they'll hopefully want to stay. And then we give them some options to go get some further training and to kind of explore what you know, get really good in certain areas. And I think that will be crucial going forward. They just need they need to feel appreciated, valued, and they need to see their role in the organization. I think we'll be okay, even with the blended retirement system. Credentialing is a big one. We've got credentialing coming, and you know, the GI Bill is a great benefit, and there's just a lot of off-ramps that we're building for our people. So then we need to build those on-ramps where they can come back if they so desire to come back, and I think that'll be crucial going forward.
Wow, very insightful, thank you. So yesterday, a common theme in the service chiefs panel was the need to keep up with the speed of technology. Please share any initiatives in your service where technology is being used or developed to improve training, our enlisted force. And additionally, are these initiatives going to be able to keep pace with the technology that our warfighters will see in the ever-increasing measure out in the fleet and in the battlefield?
Start down there.
I'll start with the Coast Guard.
Oh, thanks.
Master Chief.
I got one of my
Panelists.
lead training guys sitting right in front of me here, so I better get this right. So, so in terms of we're leveraging every bit of technology that we can, in terms of simulators, in terms of you know, data tracking, so that we can see where we need to apply training. We you know, with the training model, not everything needs training. A lot of times it's a job aid or some other form. You can get away. You don't necessarily have to spend the money on expensive training. We're utilizing distance learning through building online database. Those aren't terribly popular, but with the newer generation, they're much more apt to accept online training. You know, for me, if I had to sit down at a computer and plug through training, I was just like, let me get through this as quick as I can. I think there's, you know, the newer generation are more computer-based, more savvy with electronics. If you build apps, you know, you put training into apps, those types of things are appreciated. So that's the way we leverage technology for that. We're also, you know, trying to leverage technology in the jobs. If you can give people at least state of the market, if not state of the art, technology in their day-to-day jobs, that really makes them feel like I am doing something that I wouldn't be able to do on the outside, or that I'm being able to take advantage of technology. As I look around and I walk the floor and I see all the technology available to our people, that's what they want. They want to be able to be using the latest and greatest of stuff. So that's what we're trying to do. It's a little difficult and expensive, but we're gonna get there.
I agree, which is definitely tough. Well, again, one of the challenges is keeping up with technology for the infrastructure and the facilities, and we are definitely on the back burner sometimes for that. So we make do what we got. We got a couple of duct tape in the background, so we just make sure we know how to use it. Look, the young people laughed. The older people did not laugh on that, but the young people right there in the middle cracked up. I see you. All right, so, but to his point, so technology for us, we're using it in a lot of different ways. Very similar, I would think, across the services. Simulators. I have the pleasure of working with Marine Corps Systems Command because we're right there in the heart of a lot of the different modernization efforts that's being put into stride. So we have a unit called PM Tracers that work down in Orlando, and they work right alongside our Army counterparts. And again, their job is to make sure we can get to that point where, with the budget constraints, maybe we use a similar versus going out and acquiring the actual ammo, things like that. So trying to make it as realistic as we can, because the realistic training is what we're looking at to get at for those type of things. Another thing that I want to touch on when we talk about technology and modernization is AM, advanced manufacturing. We've made a lot of strides in this area for the Marine Corps, and a lot of it is in large part due to our enlisted force that's just out there on the ground. Again, working at Systems Command, we didn't have we didn't have a centralized place to where somebody out there with a great idea can come back to and say, I need this part now. I can't wait for logistics to play its role. I actually need this part now. And in the absence of a policy, a procedure, Marines became ingenious, and things are going out on their own and doing on their own, but that can also pose a threat or a problem to the equipment as well. So we had to catch up to what technology is. We kind of touched on that already, not just having the state-of-the-art equipment, but also make sure that we're on par with what's happening, because the Marines, the sailors, the coasties, they see it. They can grab it. They can touch it, and it goes back to our other question, are we speaking Lance Corporal? He's ready for it. So we had to be able to do that. So within the last year, we've made tremendous strides from doing work with concrete, building buildings and bricks, and leveraging that gap to where we don't have to wait for the actual part. Maybe sometimes that's just a temporary fix, and then other times that can be more of a permanent fix. So what Systems Command did is we created what we call the AMOC, which is the Advanced Manufacturing Operating Cell. And what that allows the PFC on the ground, that Marine on the ground, to come back and not just think of the specs that he think it is, but we can give them the no-crap industry specs and make sure that they have the right tools to, once they print it on the ground, it can be used. And from the lessons learned, we can collaborate across all the services. So I think that's a good stride in where we're going. Can it keep up? It's only going to keep up if we keep pouring that information in there. We've got to change with the times. I think I was listening to somebody not too long ago, never thought about concrete printing. That's not happening, right? It was just the plastic. And all of a sudden, here we are, we're printing with concrete, and we're not printing small things, we're printing buildings. I don't know about you, but I remember being out in Iraq and Afghanistan, and all we had, I know what I'm talking about, it was just plywood and sand and things like that, the HESCO barriers, that's the word I'm looking for, right? So, things like that. And now we're talking about, in a matter of seconds, in a matter of minutes, I can do this a lot more, giving them a lot more capability on the ground. Can it keep up? So when I think about my current job, keeping up with the demands of technology, I think it's a coupled effort, if you will, along with the industry, making sure that we listen to what the requirements are, and at the end of the day, we get the requirement right from the beginning. I just came from a demonstration last week where the prototyping that was out there, it was on par with what the Marines wanted, but it was probably on par with what the Marines wanted 5 years ago. So we brought out a few Marines to come out and test this prototype that was an idea 5 years ago. And one of the challenges I pose to them is, don't think for today, you gotta think for tomorrow. Is this what we need tomorrow? And we got to be able to get to that faster so that in the long run, we get the equipment to the warfighter on the ground when needed, because the process still has to take its time. So trying to keep up with technology is going to take a unified effort. It's going to take a little bit of effort on not just the warfighter to make sure that we know what it is. It's going to take a little bit of effort on the industry piece to make sure they can give it to us in a timely manner. And it's going to take effort on the requirement piece to make sure that we got the requirement right. So, no, there's more.
So I'm going to steal that state of the market. It's not state of the art. That's awesome. I'm going to use that. So for us, technology in our training efforts really is best captured in the second pillar of our modernization of the MPT enterprise with Ready Relevant Learning. And it's really our effort to change the dynamic and the way we do training and break our structure in 54 of the 87 ratings we have up into what we call blocks, to not overtrain or undertrain, but to give the sailor the right training for the next step that they need before they head out to the unit they're going to head out to, recognizing that, you know, an HT that gets the basic, a hull technician that gets the basic training that they need to head out to their next ship, gets that training, goes out to their ship. There's going to be some advanced training they're going to need maybe 2 years into their tour. I can't afford to fly them back to the schoolhouse mecca in Great Lakes from San Diego, so I'm going to put that training on the pier. And the way I'm going to do that is with lots of different processes, some with real equipment, but a lot with virtual trainers. And when I say virtual trainers, and I say that to people my age or Ronnie Wright's age, we think of a monitor with a mouse and that revolution in training that we did back in the 90s, which was a horrible, dismal failure, and SWOs still remember and have the scar tissue in their backs from how that went down. This is not that. This is modern gaming technology. This is real virtual environments where you can do things like welds and such that are so real that you can practice it 40 times and then walk out and do it the first time and get it right. This is training like in large scale, the LCS trainer, where a crew can go in and train in this LCS trainer, and then as a crew, report to an LCS, and the next day, having not been on that ship before, get it underway safely with all members of the crew first time on that ship that first day. That's how realistic some of this training truly was.
LCS?
Yeah. What'd I say?
No, you said LCS.
Okay.
What is LCS?
Littoral combat ship, or little combat ship, as he likes to call it. Sorry, me and my acronyms. So thank you, Kevin, I appreciate you. So the virtual environments and the tools that we're using are not, as I said, as I refer to that failure in the 90s, to take the place of instructors and save money. These are in addition to and to enhance what we do with instructors. In fact, very few will come out of the pipeline, and those that do won't come out until at least 2021, so that we can evaluate how well things are going and make sure that we are not missing anything before we remove anybody from the pipeline and change anything substantively, because we want to make sure that we, first do no harm. So we've put these things in place, but to give you one quick example of just how effective technology can be used, an APU used to start an aircraft motor. You put 30 students around it, a wooden mock-up, dial switches. You do an hour's worth of training. You then take those students out. You walk them out and you say, please start it up. 15 of the 30 students can start it on the first try. You take the same students, you put them in a virtual environment. You do this for an hour. Each one has a virtual tutor helping them out. You walk them outside, and 29 of 30 started on the first try. It's proven technology. It's working. Leveraging this technology has been very helpful in what we do. Will it keep pace as long as we continue to invest? I'm sure it will, but we're committed to it. This was a vision that started with Admiral Moran when he was the Chief of Naval Personnel, and he said, what would a sailor look like in 2025? And that's where that program, Sailor 2025, was born. And Admiral Burke has continued it, as will Admiral Now when he takes over. And we're going to continue to leverage all those technologies and things in many different ways. Training is just but one of them.
Wow. Exciting times for sure. So we've spoken a little bit today about retention, recruiting, talent management, training. I want to take it just one step further in that realm before we close this up. And I want to ask you, if you feel, if we're going to remain the preeminent military in the world, we're going to need all the brain power we can get. Please share any visions or initiatives for bringing talent into the service from industry and academia. We'll start with you, Master Chief of the Coast Guard again.
Oh.
No.
I like it when Sergeant Major goes. Sergeant.
See, I could go with the Sergeant Major, but then I wouldn't know whether to go left or right. So
Yeah.
I've kind of avoided her.
Okay.
I like the middle.
We have research and development grants with all the the national laboratories, and as the Sergeant Major said, with some of the advanced manufacturing, we partner with the national labs, especially Oak Ridge National Lab and Livermore and Sandia, and we try to get them to help us out, and we put some money towards them, and I think we get a lot of return on investment for that money. We are looking at, just as DoD is doing, is creating some billets in Silicon Valley and with industry, so that we can learn from them. We can put somebody with them and learn from them. We continue to work with some of the defense contracting companies that are doing a lot of the R&D for us. They do a lot of the technology development, and then we get to take advantage of that. We're fairly small. We have a research and development center that's in New London, Connecticut, not far from Groton, and they do a lot of great stuff with a small amount of money. We're getting into UASs and UAVs and unmanned systems, and we're really trying to just be sure that we're ready to get the mission done wherever that mission would require us the most effective and efficient way, and so that's where we're investing our resources.
Okay, very similar. We too have Marines, both officer and enlisted, that's embedded, if you will, in different industry around the globe, to include overseas. We've opened up the pipeline for our enlisted Marines to attend command and staff, which for us was all officers, mostly company grade, but we've opened up that pipeline so that more enlisted Marines can have. But again, for us, I think I touched on that earlier, we're doing a lot of investment into the enlisted side for professional military education and getting them, as if you want to speak about the brain power, getting them on that level. To include other services, we've opened a door up in Rhode Island, things like that, for the Senior Enlisted Academy as well. So those kind of things is happening. From the institutional side, one recent thing, when we talk about trying to recruit skill sets, one thing that comes to mind is this cyber auxiliary unit that's being talked about right now. I recall Lieutenant General Reynolds talking about this some years ago, and one of the challenges we've had is when we start to think about this cyber world as a warfighting domain and start taking it a lot more seriously, and the skill set that's going to be needed, or the brain power, if you will, but the skill set specifically towards that type of job. And what does that look like? So we've already opened up inside the Marine Corps a cyber career field, where Marines can go from the entry-level pipeline, and now has created that as a career field. It's still growing. It's not there yet, as well as PsyOps is another new career field that is just now getting some leverage, if you will. So that's continually to grow. But the cyber auxiliary unit is going to be 100% different from that, a lot similar to what we're doing right now with the band, where we want we want to get out to that field. What does that person necessarily look like? Don't necessarily look like me with a bun in the back of their head or a shaved head. Look like my counterparts to the left and right. Might look a little bit different. Might appear to be a little bit different. So, but we need the skill set at the end of the day. So you might have heard General Nella kind of speak about that in the news. It's not to its maturity level yet. We're still at the beginning stages of that. What that's going to look like, we don't know yet. But it's a concept that's been floating around for some years now. And with Lieutenant General Reynolds as the DCI and Lieutenant General Galavy, they're going to take that to the next level to again, posturing ourselves for peer threats that we know exist out there. So I think that's just want to kind of get on that level when we talk about brain power in the Marine Corps.
So we too have learned the value of not turning down someone with a 97 AFQT who wants to be a nuke but has a 1.5-inch tattoo on the back of their neck. Because like we said, it's really hard to find talent, and if that's the disqualifier because of the rubric we have been hemmed into, we're just not going to do that to ourselves. So we have expanded our aperture. Over the last 1.5 years, 2 years, 3 years, we have allowed sleeves. And people like me, when I was at the Naval Academy, lost my mind and said, you can't do this. We just can't allow this. And then you take a step back and you go, well, actually, we can. It's just a matter of thinking it through and now how do we make adjustments. And There are lots of things. I mean, I love your questions because you could probably spend an hour talking through each one of them and all of the eaches and ways to get at all of them. And we don't have an hour, so I'm going to take just one small sliver and focus on the fact that the Navy is a STEM service. We are a service of stuff, of equipment that we operate, ships and aircraft and machinery. And as a STEM service, I think it's not lost on me that 51% of the STEM graduates in the United States are women. And if you ask me what is the key to retaining talent and winning the next war, retaining women and finding a way to retain not women for women's sake, but retaining the talent that this nation has, that this nation is producing, 51% of the graduates in that field. Finding a way to retain them at a greater level than we have in the military is a key strategy point that we have. And it's why we came up with SIP, which is no longer a pilot program. Thanks to NDAA in 18, we now have a program, not a pilot. And the SIP is the Career and Mission program, which allows, for enlisted, we have a very easy time because our careers are governed by policy. But for officers, they have this thing called DOTMA, which governs how officer careers are governed, and it is very strict. It's an up or out policy that gives very little flexibility. And Admiral Burke, as the Chief of Naval Personnel, has gained some real traction in getting changes to DOTMA so that we can do things like this year we now have, as a pilot, no pun intended, instructor pilots that we are going to keep that can stay and be non-due course, but can stay and continue some upward progression and stay with us in that narrow vein and not have to seek command or then get out. But when it comes to SIP or a career and mission program, they can step off the treadmill. They can take a 2-year or 3-year sabbatical, and then they can come back in, reset their lineal number, and then continue to pursue milestones. And people who have done that, like Captain Valerie Overstreet, have continued to go on and find major command and other milestones in their future. And I think that programs like that and initiatives like that are going to be the key to really retaining the talent that this nation has and getting after winning the next war.
Awesome. Thank you, McPon. Sure. So everything we've talked about so far has been developing and expanding our enlisted talent pool, both to meet the demands of returning to great power competition and into the multiple skill sets that the Coast Guard brings to the table. While we're doing this, we're also faced with the daunting task of modernizing our ships and our equipment and improving overall readiness. This is a tall order for sure. Are you concerned about the increased demands and stressors on the enlisted Marine, sailor, or Coast Guardsman? And this time we'll start with Sergeant Major.
So first, am I concerned with the demands? No. I think we step up to the plate and we step up to the challenge always. The modernization piece, a lot of it for us, because we're not STEM, is definitely ground-based in a lot of different ways, especially if it's a Marine Corps initiative change. Things that involve the maritime, we tend to work a lot with NAVAIR and NAVC as well. So, but from our side, the modernization that we have is making sure that infantryman is poised, if you will, to fight in climate place, in any climate place. So the first thing that I just want to talk about, the reason it's not a stressor, they ask for it. 9 times out of 10, it's something that they're asking for, something not just they need, but they're asking for. You kind of talked about the retention of women. Well, one thing to making sure that the warfighter is ready and prepared is making sure that we have the equipment that every last one of them need, regardless of gender or size. That's something we didn't look at all the time, and that's something that we definitely made a focus in the most recent years, right? So we start there. And then when we talk about being ready to fight that fight, modernizing the things that we have. As a Marine, sometimes you get out and you go look at the stuff and it's old equipment, it's old things because the sustainment chain is not always invested in. So now we looked at things that's so close to us to creating the lethality of the force, right? That's one of our lines of effort when we're meeting what we call Marine Corps 2025. So with that being said, you may have heard things like the M27, the new night vision goggles, capability. We're making sure that we increase the C2 out there to be able to operate in degraded and in uncontested environment. We're making sure that unmanned capability is also there to ensure that the Marine does not always have to be put into harm's way. So all these things wrapped around, they're not stressed. You give it to them, they figure it out, right? Because 9 times out of 10, they're asking for it. They're asking for it, they want it, and they're ready to employ it. So no, I'm not stressed at that. I think we just got to keep up with the pace and making sure that they have the equipment to match their talent, if you will. So not only are we increasing the pool itself, but we have to make sure that we have the capacity to give them the right equipment at the right time so it matches their talent. Because otherwise they've already used and abused the things that they have. You know, we say sometimes, make it Marine proof. Right? So, I mean, I got that because it's going to get beat up after a while, right? But at the end of the day, it's going to sustain not just today's fight, but tomorrow's fight as well.
Yeah, having served on a few amphib ships, I can attest to their ability to destroy some stuff. Yeah, absolutely. Jason?
Okay, thanks. So we are in the middle of the biggest recapitalization of our assets in probably the history of our Coast Guard. And the new ships that we're building are optimally, we call them optimally manned. They are not minimally manned, they're optimally manned. So as we do that, there is an expectation that when we arrive at the unit, we can do the mission, we can do it right away. We're not putting a lot of extra training racks, training units. Our 378-foot ships that fought in Vietnam, they have a crew of 175. Our 419-foot national security cutters, the new ones, have a crew of 126. And I would tell you that the national security cutter is far more technologically superior and gets a lot more stuff done with 50 less people. So there's a little bit more of a stress on the crew there. Our ship may be sailing and doing intel, and let's say we're doing a counter-narcotics patrol. They may have detainees on deck, which we have to stand guard over those detainees. We're launching a helicopter and launching a small boat at the same time while doing all the watches and collecting intel and doing all that kind of stuff. And then when the helicopter takes off, we have a precision marksman in a helicopter that is shooting the engine out of a boat, an outboard engine with the helicopter moving and the boat's going 40 knots, bouncing up and down, and they have to put a round through that outboard without hitting the. I mean, that is just the skill sets of the crew and everything that we do are just. There is some stress on there. There is some stress, and I think we're trying to mitigate that with looking at tour links, looking at our imports. We're really looking at the way we manage our ships and the way we manage our people. And I'm optimistic we're gonna get it right, and we won't overstress our crews. But I will admit that the folks asking to go to sea is down. And I would say it's down because of the challenges, the difficulties, and the stress of sea life.
So if I were to say I wasn't stressed or worried about the stress that our sailors face, it would be to not understand the landscape in which we're sitting, because frankly, the demand for naval forces has only increased. If you look at the number of ships underway today, it's the same as it was 30 years ago, and frankly, we're doing it with less than half the ships. The tools, parts, and materiel that we need to support and sustain those ships and squadrons and such are the demand to get those things around the world to where they need to be to do that is hard or harder today than it has ever been. And by the way, logistics, if I could give it up for them, frankly, you win or lose wars based on logistics. How well you fight is great, but just ask the Germans or anyone else that's ever lost a war, how well you move things to or from the front. That's what's going to get it done or not. And if you can't do that, you can't win. So we struggle with that, and we're working to get better at that. But it's a constant struggle to account for and get parts when and where they need to be. applying resources to get that 80% up jets, in 18 months and get the material condition of our ships where they need to be is of paramount concern to us. And you put that on top of sailors with an already busy day, even as we grow, there's a lot out there to be stressed about. But that's why we have leadership, and that's why engaged, especially senior enlisted leadership, is the key to managing that stuff, setting priorities, informing senior officer leadership to say, hey, the wheels are moving at optimal speed, or the wheels are moving too fast and we need to slow down because we can't do this safely. And it's up to us to be the speed governors and to say what's safe and what's not.
Okay, awesome. So I still want to preserve some time for questions at the end, so I'm going to ask you one final question. We talked a little bit about developing talent. We talked about taking care of our stuff. So let's talk about a little employing our stuff a little bit. And readying our sailors, Marines, and Coast Guardians to employ that stuff. So when you speak about great power competition, both the national security strategy and national defense strategy state that the maritime environment will play a prominent role in addressing the nation's security concerns for the foreseeable future. That's a big change for our maritime forces, and I think, Mikban, you touched on that earlier. As we move into great power competition again for the first time in really a military generation. So what methods do you use to facilitate this fundamental shift in your services? And do you feel there's a sufficient sense of urgency to do so, both from within and outside of your organizations?
There you go. Word of mouth, talking, telling stories. I don't think that you can convey that sense of urgency, which can be, like any phrase, can become a bumper sticker in seconds, in an email, in a message. Word of mouth and eyeball to eyeball leadership, it requires individuals to convey that message, whether it's me doing it to you, whether it's you doing it in a chief's mess on a ship. It has to be conveyed from human to human. This is something that can get lost in translation in the electronic sphere very quickly and lose its sense of meaning and sense of urgency very quickly. It requires all of us to talk about and to reinforce with information and to talk about the why behind it, especially with the generation that we're serving now on our ships and squadrons and operational units. They need to understand the why. You need to talk about the size of the Chinese Navy and where they're basing and where they're forward basing and how they're becoming blue water capable and what they're doing with man-made islands and how they're putting defenses on them. We need to talk about the capabilities of an Iran with their kilos and what they're doing with their deployments and what it's like when we go through the straits and how they practice swarm tactics. We need to better inform and not assume that a CS who's working down in the galley in your carrier doesn't need to know what's going on in the world around them. There are some services, I honestly believe the Marines do a far better job at this than we do institutionally in making sure that every Marine understands the operational environment in which they're deployed. And I think that as a Navy, we can do far better at keeping all of our sailors informed as to the why so that they understand. And then mission relating, when I was on the Carl Vinson and I see my former CO here, we talked about this a lot, and mission relation was a term I learned on that ship where we talked about what does it mean to you, understanding the mission of the unit and what we're doing wide scale versus what do I do and how does it relate to that? I was recently at an all-hands call with the CNO, and we had an aircraft mech who said, I do corrosion control. What the hell do I do in contributing to this great power competition? And, I started with every rating, every skill, everything we do in the Navy contributes in one way or another to lethality. We do not have the time, the resources, or anything else to waste. Every resource, everything we have goes to lethality in one way or another, and finding a way to relate it. The corrosion control that you perform on an aircraft keeps that jet airborne, which gives that pilot time and proficiency in the cockpit, which contributes to their readiness so that when the balloon goes up, they're ready to fight. And the person who's cooking that meal is the person who's keeping that stomach fed, who's keeping that person alert that's flying that plane, or the mechanic that's working on that plane. Everyone plays a role, and without everyone on the team functioning, the team can't win. It's just like any sports team. It's just like any team we have. And every rating leads to lethality in one way or another. And mission relating is the thing that we probably have work to do on that.
Thank you, Sergeant Major.
Great points. Let me just add a little bit to that. You know, when I read this question, the first thing I thought about, I was like, it's a right on point question because, you know, for 17 or so years, we've been concentrated in specific areas, you know, and at that time, there was other countries growing, you know, while we stayed in sustained combat, if you will. So as we come out of that, you know, I listened to the Commandant, I listened to some of the leaders, and a lot of things that they're talking about is things that we got to still get down to the lowest level, helping us understand that we don't fight by ourselves, you know, we're still a part of the Department of the Navy, you know, so speaking in terms and making sure that we employ in a naval integrated force, we still haven't got there yet. So I think that's, to me, this is where we need to grow a little bit more as far as you talk about sense of urgency, making sure that, you know, things that's coming in the future, that we don't just think about it through a singular focused lens. Not the Marine Corps, we can't. We got to be able to make sure that not only does it exchange as far as information is concerned to be able to fight in a joint environment, but when we talk about maritime positioning, you know, just the way we fight on ships and things like that, we're not just there anymore to just be the gatekeepers. We're actually got to be able to employ from that platform, and I don't think that narrative has gotten all the way down. I think it's there at the top. So I like what you're saying, but that it's hard to get that down to that millennial thought process, who my focus is somewhat always boxed in, but it's important too. So we continue to push that to understand what the mission is. I kind of talked earlier about understanding what the commander's intent is, and also understanding that it's flexible. It's the same thing. We may do well once we're on that mission, but being able to understand it all the time, every time, I think that plays a large role in the way we operate when you talk about security concerns, you know. Just walking around my own building, you know, or just walking around, and you see it all the time. You can search social media and you're seeing, like, I think society-wise, we sometimes get complacent, you know, because the fight's not always right here on our grass, but we know what happened before if we continue to do that. So I think this type of concern has to be large focus, not just in the military, but also large focus across our nation. So that's one thing I appreciate about what you said. As far as the sense of urgency, you know, we always can do it better, right? So we seem to be a reactive force sometimes, you know. We don't do anything until, you know, the round's already downrange. So definitely trying to get ahead of that game, or get, you know, they say left of the bang. So this way you're preparing for it. So we think about being ready to fight tonight in every climbing place, not just words. I don't know if you know, the Commandant came on and said, we have to sing the Marines hymn now. I don't know if everybody heard that, right? So we can't just let the music play and we standing there. No, it's time to sing. It's time to know every word and know what the words mean, and live by that. And of course, you know, any kind of change comes with a little bit of roughness, right? A little bit of roughness. But when you stop and actually think about what those words mean, we've been doing it for 200 plus years, and it's proven battle tested, and it's been proven it's worth for many years. So millennials or not, we're not changing some foundational things, any climb in place. So even for us from the acquisition worlds, we can't lose our sight on not just moving to a maritime positioning, if you will, which we're doing with long range position. We're looking at from the ground, the air defense, things like that. But also when we talk about cold weather, we've lost sight of that. We've lost our pulse on that. I'm not sure where we're at as far as the training is concerned. And I say lost holistically. We're looking at ways now to bring a lot of that back to the realm. Like I said, 17 years, we've been focused in certain areas, and we got to take our mindset off of that and create that narrative all the way down that the mission has to be focused across the globe.
That's awesome. Master Chief, it may not be great power competition, but I don't think anybody in this room would argue that what the Coast Guard is doing and continues to do is every bit as urgent as our great power competition in peer competitors that we face.
Well, thanks, Kevin. Just real quick, I think we need to be careful that recruiting and retention, with trying to use the great power competition as as something that would draw people into the military. It's not going to be the same as the global war on terrorism. The global war on terrorism, people felt like when they joined the military, they were protecting the nation today from a threat that could happen today or tomorrow. So, and that still could happen, but as we shift our focus to the great power competition, we need to realize that that's not going to be this draw of this real patriotic society that says, yes, I want to join the military to protect us from China and Russia, and you know, so we have to think about that and how that's going to affect our recruiting model. I think, you know, for us, we do ports and waterways, coastal security, a little maritime domain awareness, and we're happy to give you a ride to the Arctic anytime you want to, because we have a new icebreaker coming. So
we've got that, thank you.
Yeah, we've been doing cold water for a while. Yeah, and I will say thank you to the Navy for help with this joint acquisition. So we are, you know, we have 11 statutory missions, and many of those are done during peacetime, and so we are trying to be that helper, if you will, with the great power competition. We do have a cutter.
Enabler.
Yeah, an enabler. We have a cutter sailing with you know, with the Navy over in 7th Fleet, and we're excited about that. We're going to have another one coming, and anytime that we can jump in and help, we're glad to do it.
Awesome, thank you. So, you know, once again, what an honor it is to be here and ask all of you these questions, but my questions are easy and short-sighted. I'm going to turn it over to the audience, who has some great questions, I'm sure. We've got about 20 minutes, so we're right on track. So please, if you have a question. Well, the microphones are coming around so everybody can hear. You have one right here. If you raise your hand up so she can drop a mic on you.
Thank you. Rich Smoke, retired Navy. McPon, you've touched on the answer, I think, to the question I'm going to ask you. So what programs, policies, or practices do you think you could institute from the other services to help grow your individuals at the enlisted level?
I'm sorry.
What programs, practices, or policies that you think you could institute in the Navy that you could take from the Coast Guard or the Marine Corps to help grow the enlisted forces at the, you know, in the Navy at this point?
Grow in size or grow in capability?
Well, we talked a lot about, you know, growing the sailors, growing Marines, growing the Coast Guard enlisted. Sure. And, you know, of course, the time here, I've seen you take notes about things that you've seen that are good practices, good policies from the other services. So I'm asking all three of you, you know, which of those things that you know about from the other services you think you can institute into your individual services to help better or to help grow your individual enlisted personnel?
Well, I certainly think that some flexibility in looking at, you know, the recruiting pool matters. I think looking at that and making sure that we're not turning away people who could help us in one way or another, because we just want the best, most talented folks that want to serve, that are willing to raise their hand and come serve, can come to us and do so. And I think that we have some rules, regulations, policies, and things that we're always willing to take a look at. Tattoos was one example, but always taking a look at those things and making sure that we're not turning our nose up at talent when talent is so hard to find. And some of the things that the Marines have done, we've taken a hard look at. So that's one.
Oh, I'm going to take advantage of this ride he offered me to the Arctic, but other than that, I think for us, you know, one thing I've always appreciated about the services was the academic path. And we just don't always have the resources to do that. But we've definitely, coming from as a director down there, I know that was one of our things that we looked at, is how can we take our already curriculum that's in place and just making sure that we get it to a point where we can accredit those color classes and offer the opportunity. And we're not necessarily there yet, but we just don't have the robust curriculum and resources to ensure that the lessons that they're already getting, are they at that level that I can get them accredited so this way that they can walk out with more than what they walked in with from the academia side. So if we ever get to that point, that's one thing I do appreciate about many of the other services, that we just don't have the capability to do it, but we are looking at that.
So we just contracted with RAND to do a women's retention study, how we can do a better job of retaining women, and we're happy to share that with the other services. And the Coast Guard's nice because we're small, so you can do a good study on us. It's not like really hard, like hurt your head, and then typically across the military services, what's good for one is typically good for the others. The Marine Corps is a little bit different sometimes, but by and large, there's probably some lessons learned there. So I think we can offer that. What I take away and what I heard MCPON say was the Marines, they do a good job of making it hard, so it feels like you earned something. When you do something in the Marine Corps, you know you did something and you earned it. So we instead of trying to make it easier on people, maybe sometimes we make it a little harder so that it's actually more appreciated. I know he said he was doing that in his basic training, which I think is a good thing. And then what I've done is, personally, I've stolen their promotion process for their senior enlisted. I really think I've never met and I know they're out there, but I've never really met a Navy Master Chief that I just wasn't thoroughly impressed with. And so I'm modeling our advancement process, the Senior Chief and Master Chief, off of the Navy's advancement process.
Well, the day's still young, and we really don't know each other yet.
Have you met Kevin?
Navy Master Chiefs are the best.
Okay, another question? Yes, sir.
Thanks, Force. Juan Garcia here, a guy who's benefited enormously from great senior enlisted leadership throughout my career. MCPON, I appreciate your personal involvement in helping to build a culture of fitness with a generation that in all too many cases grew up without PE in high schools, supersized generation playing video games instead of pickup basketball. But as you also know, last month we lost our second recruit, taking that last PRT before graduating at boot camp, the second one of this calendar year. I suspect the investigation is probably still too recent for you to comment on this, but I wonder if this is a trend, an anomaly, and what steps you think we can help to further build this culture.
Unfortunately, because it's still in the investigative phase, I really can't comment on those specifics. I'll tell you that we have an incredibly well documented, well scripted, well orchestrated and monitored physical fitness program. We take very few things as seriously as we do the physical regimen as we do at RTC Great Lakes. The IT recruits may never know just how, they may think it's random, or suddenly that training that pops up out of nowhere that's physical in nature that they may feel like is random. It's not random, and it's scripted, it's talked about, it's programmed, but they may think it's in response to something. It's not, and it's very well covered to ensure that we don't overtrain recruits. That's the worst thing we could possibly do is break a recruit of any kind. I can also tell you that even if all procedures and processes are followed to a T and the RDCs do nothing wrong, they love those recruits and they are personally invested in those recruits. And even if there's no fault, it doesn't change the fact that they love those recruits, and there isn't a deep personal sense of loss that they feel, as do the other recruits in the company. So, our hearts certainly go out to that family, as well as the shipmates in those companies, as well as the RDCs that were there with them. So, but to your point, we are really getting after physical fitness starting in boot camp and trying to carry that on out into the fleet through a host of initiatives. So,
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Rafael Ortiz, Reserve Organization of America. Thank all four of you for showing up, and I had a list of 6 questions, and you hit just about every one of them. The BSR and looking to the future, how are you going to deal with that now that they can get out? I know many people, so. But going back to one other key point, you talk about looking at the lens, looking at the future. You're talking about optimally manned or staffed ships. Looking at a great power competition, have we, and you're our enlisted, you're the voice of the deck plate, have we looked at attrition? Have we looked at when we actually come into conflict? Have we trained our people to prepare for that? PTSD is already on the high side. And have we even accounted for or prepared for replacing half of a crew on a ship or half of a battalion or unit if we lose them in conflict? And if we haven't, I think you're the perfect members to address that. Thoughts?
So I want to repeat back, just make sure I understand your question.
What have we done, or what are we doing to prepare for the member going into a combat situation for PTSD? In the Coast Guard side, we send a small boat out to pick up bodies off of San Francisco Bay they've jumped.
Sure.
That petty officer pulling that person out is going, why am I collecting all these little pieces after TSA? Why am I picking up this stupid little toy? What purpose is that for me? And you tell them off the get-go, you're not on this isn't a rescue, this is a recovery for the family member, because that little toy is going to be the closing for that family. So that gives purpose to what they're doing versus coming back. We know that if we inoculate that petty officer and say, this is your purpose, they don't have that PTSD, or it minimizes it on the get-go. Are we doing something similar for our people, preparing them for a combat situation where they're going to lose their peers, they're going to lose the people they're with? Are we preparing our troops for a true combat situation?
Okay, so no, we don't have something exactly like that in the Navy right now. We do talk a lot about mental health. We do talk a lot about, and we use we have programs such as the deployed resiliency counselors, and we've put mental health providers closer to the waterfront. We are talking about personal resilience. And finding ways to connect to each other. And Navy Leader Development Framework 3.0, which is CNO just released today, you're going to see something called Connections, which frankly, connections and how we connect to each other is how we build that resilience between each other and how we're going to be stronger together and get through a lot of these situations. The ability that the Coast Guard has on a much smaller scale to do something a lot more specific is a lot different than what the Navy has with the resources we have and what we're expected to do. So, no, I don't know that it's practical to do what you're talking about in the same way that we would do in the Navy. Mission relating, talking about it as we prepare to go forward and potentially engage in blue water combat. Absolutely, that is absolutely the purview and responsibility of the command teams at their unit level, and they should be doing stuff like that and talking about what this means. But having a program of sorts, we don't have something like that at the moment, no.
We do have some pretty realistic trainers.
We do have yeah, of course we do. We have trainers and stuff, but I think he's talking about something very different.
So if I could, thank you for your leadership as a reserve officer. I really appreciate it. So the Navy has a safe harbor program, and as people get injured and they need help, they enroll in the Navy Safe Harbor program, and the Navy Safe Harbor tracks them and kind of gets a lessons learned on how do we take care of people that have been injured, how do we take care of folks. And I want to say, first off, publicly, thank you to the Navy for allowing the Coast Guard to participate in the Navy Safe Harbor program. And we do capture lessons learned for how to best take care of our people who are wounded and how to look after people. We could definitely use better mental health care in the military. There's no doubt about that. But we're trying to have lessons learned from the accidents and the things that happened today.
I mean, we have others like Orion, which post accident, Fitzgerald, McCain. We have folks that are enrolled in that, and they'll track those sailors probably for their entire career as long as they are willing to participate. And continue to check on their mental health status and periodically look in on them. So we have programs that do aftermath. What we don't have is what you're talking about, which is some sort of preemptive thing where we can put every sailor through a comprehensive regimen of mental health I don't know
Well,
what you would
it's
call
an
it, pre-inoculation.
It's very short. It's just basically took the 2 minutes I told you. It's an inoculation. I'd be curious to hear, the Marines have probably more of a touch on this than the other two services because of the conflicts over the last 10 years. Is there anything your
The only
NCOs are doing prior to going into a firefight to tell these people, here's what to expect, here's how to prepare yourself for this?
So I think I was thinking about it at first like you, it's just more, this was a structured program, but if you're just talking about conversation-wise, realistic training, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, everybody goes through pre-deployment training before they leave, and we try to make it realistic as possible. I mean, there's, just, because we're so ground-heavy, if you will, and we're definitely infantry base, the thought of death and things like that you might see, or the tragedies that you might see, is not sugar-coated out there. So, I think the best thing is not be afraid of the topic. Being able to speak about it, it's hard to put in a proactive approach to me because everyone deals with it differently. So you got to be able to adjust to that level. But making sure, as you said, the NCOs speak about things. Everyone don't have the same experience level, so getting people in front of who've gone through certain different adversities and how they got through with it, absolutely, it becomes a talking point, but no program prior to. We still have similar programs reactively afterwards, and they can be part of the program. Mental health has come a long way, I think, in all the services. In the last years, as far as breaking down some of that stigma that comes associated with it. And I don't think this is an enlisted or an officer thing, and I don't think it has anything to do with age either. I think, being able to resiliently face adversities and still continue to come through with it, I think that's something we always continue to invest in. So I'm not sure if this is answering your question, sir, but I think at the crutch of it, or bluff, yes, it's talked about as a conversation piece. No, I don't know of any formal program that addresses PTSD prior to combat.
Okay, thank you. And then the follow-on question was, are we ready for the 10 or 20% attrition in a head-on-head, force-on-force?
Are we ready? So, I mean, we have a reserve unit, just like every other service, right? And, there's a lot of work that go into creating, again, the realistic, but it comes up with a lot more challenges, right? As you know, if I heard correctly, you're a reserve officer, so you understand the challenges that's faced there. So I think being ready is dependent upon making sure, again, that we invest in there. I'm going to use a couple of different ways. I got it the 2-week deal, but making that realistic as possible. We have INIs out there where we have active duty in touch alongside with the reserve components to ensure the up-to-date training is actually being done. We also pushed out through the Marine Corps University cadres, if you will, to where we're able to maximize more on what that 2-week is supposed to look like. When we're talking about mandatory training that needs to be done, or grade appropriate training that also needs to be done. So I think there's efforts being ways that definitely part of the family, 100%. So things that we do on the active side, we have to be able to replicate that on the reserve side as well. So I think there's effort. I think that also comes with ensuring that the reserve component knocks on the door. I mean, I remember being down and I had reserve enlisted come to me, hey, we need this. I need to get them promoted. I need this. Got it. Now let's look at being able to do that, because I only know what I know. So I think that becomes a two-way street to make sure that we actually doing that there. But the effort is there. I think we can't lose sight of it. You're absolutely right. And we can't wait till the balloon goes up to figure out, is our reserve component ready?
Okay, McMahon, I'll give you a stab at this, but you got 2 minutes.
At the risk of channeling Sergeant Major Green and Fleet Master Chief Ray Kemp, I have no doubt whatsoever at the resilience and resolve of the American sailor, and how they will rise to the occasion in a combat situation, and that first missile hit that's going to take out 300 to 400 sailors on a carrier, and how the rest will succeed. Will it be painful? Yes. Will there be lessons learned? Yes. Will some fail? Yes. And will others rise that you did not expect? Absolutely. I could tell you the story, I won't do it in this filmed environment, of my first experience in watching someone get shot at and a frogman who I thought was invincible curl up in a ball. I did not expect that, but up until then, all he was a paper tiger with lots of tattoos, and we all thought the sun rose and set with that man until someone shot at us for real, and I saw what happened when it happened. And sometimes you just don't know until it happens. But I have no doubt that there will be lessons learned, but I also have absolutely no doubt, because I have just seen too much and been around too long and been too exposed to our sailors at the deck plate level to know that they will absolutely rise to the occasion. I have no doubt whatsoever.
What a great place to end that. It's got to be a quick one.
But there you go. My name is Seaman Price. This is a question to all three of you. Since we're having a problem communicating with your junior members, is there a way to implement a assignment for your junior members, such as seamen, your lance corporals, to get into a recruiting area, like even if it's temporary, because they're going to be able to discuss with junior members at high schools because they're just leaving high school, or junior college members, because a lot of members go straight from high school to college. Is there a way to implement a program for your junior members to discuss with newer members? I feel like that would help the retention rate.
So we have recruiters assistants, which junior members can take advantage of, and it's actually encouraged, if you will, especially if you're fresh out of a boot camp, if you will. But you can go to it a year in, 2 years in, and basically all it is exactly what you're talking about. You go back to a recruiter station and you go along with many of the recruiters, and you become that spokesperson, if you will. You become that mouthpiece, you know, and it works as a great tool, actually, because people will gravitate towards that, and it may even be in your own hometown where they saw you with long hair 3 months ago, you know, and now look at you now, type deal. So yes, that's definitely there from the recruiters.
Sergeant Major, how long do they stay in the recruiting station?
It depends. So if you go straight after recruit training, typically 30 days, but if it becomes a request, it goes back with the command, and it can be up to 30 days for us, and that depends on the mission itself.
So the Navy has the same thing, we with both officers and enlisted. So it's a little more rare when you get an officer that's got that kind of time in between their pipeline training, but we call it HARP. And we have other versions of that too, where there's an intermission in their training pipeline where we'll send them home to a recruiting station. It's a good deal for them. They get to be at home, not burn leave, but at the same time, they get the opportunity to contribute back to the recruiting mission, talk to some of those folks from their hometown. So it's a long-established program. They had it when I first came in 30 years ago, and it's still a very robust program today for exactly the reasons you just said. So.
We have hometown recruiting too. When you graduate from boot camp, you can go back to your hometown and recruit. We have another initiative. This is totally grassroots. We didn't ask anybody to do it, but we had a few petty officers who decided that they wanted to create a program called EPIC. And this is a program where they reach out to recruiting offices, and when we have underrepresented minorities who are like, what is this going to be like for me? They can call these guys, and gals, and the recruiter can put them in touch, and they can talk to a petty officer that may be similar to their background and their upbringing, to kind of encourage them to say, hey, you're going to love it. This is going to be great. This is the right thing for you. And it keeps them in the recruiting pipeline. The recruiters love it because, you know, it really helps reinforce that this is a great organization and you are going to like it. So that's the only other thing that I can think of right now that we've got going. But good question. Thank you.
You know, think of how far we come. 30 years ago, you wouldn't ask that question. And today you got the full attention of the three senior folks in the Army, the Marine Corps. You can kick my ass later for that.
You didn't mean that.
The Coast Guard, the Marine Corps, and the Navy, really listening to what you have to say. And I think that's very indicative of kind of where we're going and how far we've come. And it's nothing but exciting as we move forward. So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for attending today. Panel members, thank you for participating. It's been a great
job, Kevin. Good job.
Thank you, Kevin.